everybody, and welcome back to Lunu, your weekly Universal news and updates. If you haven't already seen my channel before, I basically spend the week researching all of the changes in Universal Orlando and put them into these videos for you to enjoy. And with Universal starting to get into the holiday spirit this week, I have a lot to go over. So without further ado, let's start with my first topic. The holidays! So as I just mentioned, Universal has started preparing for Christmas. So why not talk about that? This week we got to see some Christmas decor being placed in Seuss Landing to help celebrate the holidays. Near the entrance, Christmas trees have been placed, along with some garland that has gone up over the entrance arc. Garlands can also be seen placed on almost all of the buildings in the land, showing that Universal is getting more and more prepared for the festive season. But Christmas decorations were also placed elsewhere in Islands of Adventure. In Port of Entry, even more garland was placed, covering buildings and storefronts. It also was placed over the entrance area, where you can scan your pass to actually get into the parks. So that's it on this new topic, but I have some other major updates in my next topic. Yes, the general news of this week. So this week, Universal announced something that is pretty big. The Cinimatic celebration returned this weekend. If you don't know, the Cinimatic celebration is the fountain and light show that Universal does in the Studios Park in the Central Lake. This show has not taken place since the parks closed due to COVID-19, so it's awesome to see it make a return. But the show also announced something else. This is that the Cinimatic celebration will be happening on other weekends too. I'm not sure of the exact dates, but I'm pretty sure that they said that it would be coming back for at least 2 weekends of November. But in order to do these shows, they need to do preparation for it. That's where our next updates come in. The first is that in order for the show to be done, the parks needed to be open later to allow it to get dark. So for this to happen, Universal had to extend their park hours on weekends until 10 p.m. The other preparations that they had to make include that they added socially distanced markers in Central Park, which is the primary viewing area for Cinimatic celebrations. And that outside of Central Park, signs signifying that it is the main viewing area showed up. These signs are very useful as they also have the time of the show on them, and Cinimatic celebrations is something that you definitely don't want to miss due to being late. To finish off general news is an update that has absolutely nothing to do with what I just talked about, which is that in Marvel Superhero Island, Green Goblin and Dr. Doom have resumed doing meet and greets that they used to do. So yeah, that's it for general news, but I have even more interesting updates in my next topic. Beep, beep, beep. The sound of all those huge machines at work. So what's new in the construction field this week? Well, it all has to do with everyone's favorite construction projects that has been going on for a year at this point and doesn't plan on opening for another year if the best case scenario happens, the Velocicoaster. So nothing huge happened on the site this week, but a lot of small things did. This week a staircase that is enclosed by metal beams was installed by the side of the site that Burger Digs is on. We have no idea what the function of these stairs will be. It could be anything from a ride entrance or exit to a staff-only passage. Another thing that was added this week was that under the first inversion, more netting was added. This is similar to all of the other netting that was placed onto the ride over the past 2 weeks, and I expect that more will be added soon. All of the other changes to the Velocicoaster have to do with trees. Outside of the perimeter fence, a single lonely but towering tree has been planted this week. I'm going to assume that Universal will plant more of these in the future because right now this tree kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. The other tree updates that I have is that by the rock work on the outside of the fence, some trees were planted, and on the ride area by the 360 barrel roll, some more trees were planted. So, with those 6 updates all said, I'm now out of new construction, so let's talk about more seasonal stuff in our next topic. Wait, hold up. Future Lunar here. I actually forgot an update, so before we go to the next topic, I figured I should tell you. It's that this week, a path was actually placed on the back of the site that will most likely be used as a general path, and will link up all of the bridges and connection areas that they're going to be adding when this ride comes out. Anyways, now let's go where I left off and look at our next topic. So Halloween Horror Nights Light is almost over, but that won't stop me from giving updates. Disappointingly though, is I only have one update, but it's one that leads to a lot of matters. So this week on their YouTube channel, Universal released official POVs on both of the houses in the testing event. For Revenge of the Tooth Fairy, this doesn't affect us all that much, as the recording ban in the house was lifted a few weeks ago. However, where it gets interesting is in the bride's house. The Bride of Frankenstein Lives has had and still has a recording ban on it, meaning that the only POV that we have of the house is the one that Universal just gave us. I love the way that this house looks and all of the effects that we can see that they use in the POV, but when I watched this, I got one major question. And this question applies to the Revenge of the Tooth Fairy too. Because these houses were released to the public and official POVs were made for both of them, would they be returning next year? Well, none of the answers are set in stone, but I have predictions for both of them. I'll start with the Revenge of the Tooth Fairy. I do not believe that this house will be returning. My reason for this is it has a few parts to it. The first part is that the Revenge of the Tooth Fairy house was actually meant to go in HHN 29 originally, before it got replaced. By the fact that it got replaced, and by the fact that this idea has been in circulation for 2 years already, I don't think that Uni would want to make that 3. The second is the recording ban. Unlike the bride's house, the recording ban in Revenge of the Tooth Fairy was lifted. Universal knew that they would be spoiling the house for future guests, as all of the POVs would be made, and people could see what was inside. And now with an incomplete POV on Universal's own YouTube, I don't see the likeliness being very high. But the bride's house seems to be a different story. This house was set to be in HHN 30 and was never even an option for Halloween Horror Nights 29. It also did not lift its recording ban as to not give away any spoilers. The only thing that could point to them not wanting to use this house again next year is the fact that they released an uncompleted POV for this house. However, this is the only POV, and due to the fact that it is incomplete means that anything can really happen for the bride's house. So that's it for HHN, and hopefully more will come soon. But until then, let's get into our next topic. Yes, food and restaurants, the topic that not only allows me to talk about all of the yummies of uni, but also allows me to fit in some clips from The Simpsons. So this week in food, we have good news and bad news. The good news is that the Croissant Moon Bakery is now open on the weekends. And if you saw my last video, you'd know that I actually predicted this was going to happen because tables and chairs showed up outside of it last week. The bad news for this week is that in the wizarding world of Harry Potter, pumpkin juice has been held back from its bottled form and is instead only served on tap. We believe that this has to do with a manufacturing problem, so hopefully the bottles will return to fridges around the wizarding world soon. Speaking of Harry Potter, we can look at a whole lot of new Harry Potter stuff in our next topic. Merchandise. So over the past lot of weeks, most of my merchandise updates were taken over by Halloween Horror Nights items. But this week, that all changes, as Christmas stuff is starting to make its appearance. Even though it's only one thing, Harry Potter Quidditch-themed ornaments have come to the shops. So if you want to theme your tree to broomsticks, this would be the thing for you. Okay, looking at new masks this week, we actually have 3 of them. The first of these continues the Harry Potter theme. It's a chocolate frog mask. The other 2 masks are retro marquee Jaws masks and a retro marquee retro attractions mask. So, going back to Harry Potter for no reason at all, new Marauders Maps themed lounge fly bags are now sold in Island Trading Co. And even more Harry Potter merch can be found in the Wizarding World. A new, sorry if I butchered this, Serafina Picuri interactive wand has become available there. Finishing off the Potter stuff, we can visit the online store. This week, the online store has made the additions of Hogwarts alumni journals, lanyards, and iron-on patches. Finishing the merchandise category is a sale to get rid of all of the HHN merchandise that Uni has put most of the 30% off discounts that they added last week up to a 50% off discount. So if you want some spooky items, now is as good a time as any to get them. So those are all of the bold things that I could find that changed this week, but I also found minor updates in the parks. So what small things did I find this week? Well, this week in both parks, signs were placed everywhere stating to guests that if they do not wear a face covering, they will be asked to leave. Signs similar to these were placed in Disney World a few weeks ago, so Universal is pretty much just hopping on that trend. Another change is that in front of the Music Stage Plaza, tables and chairs were set up. I get hot just looking at these photos. Sheesh. And finally, I have a ride change. Hogwarts Express closed at 3 p.m. on certain days this week. I'm not sure why, I just know that it did. So that's all of the news and updates that I found in Universal this week. I hope that you enjoyed all of my commentary and laughable editing. Oh, and before I go, if you're watching this when it comes out, happy Halloween! But anyways, my job here is done. So with all of that said and done, this is Wuno, signing off.